evening and welcome to The Big Fight, a show that is young at 23, the oldest running debate show on Indian news television. I'm Sanket Upadhyay. The past few weeks have seen the powers of ED, and these are the things in public discourse, the powers of the Enforcement Directorate, a political battle around it, a Supreme Court judgment on it, and the subsequent, what is now being called by the opposition, ED overdrive. All of it happened. Opposition has alleged that this is the Enforcement Directorate's political action against the opponents. While all of this was happening, the Congress decided to shift gears, hit the streets in protest. On Friday, the party planned a mega Black Friday protest where senior leaders wearing black clothes, black bands, black scarves, led by the Gandhis no less, were seen battling it out on the streets. Perhaps in an attempt to settle, number one, any question on leadership change, and also to send a message to the party that the only way to survive is to fight. But by the evening, the BJP added a new spin to the saga, a political hue, a political color to the Black Friday protest. Amit Shah, the Union Home Minister, and the Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath said that this is Congress's appeasement, that they chose to wear black clothes on a day when 2 years ago the foundation stone was laid for the Ram temple. One thing is very clear by listening to this type of discourse, that the political battle for 2024 has begun. But on The Big Fight tonight, we ask a broader and a fundamental question. Is the opposition, you see, it's not just the Congress, the TMC, the Shiv Sena, all opposition parties. Are they fighting an existential battle this time around? Let's quickly begin the big fight. I would like to introduce Sushmita Dev, Rajya Sabha MP of the Trinamool Congress, Shama Mohammed, spokesperson of the Congress Party, Justice B.A. Khan, former Chief Justice of the J&K High Court, Ashwini Dubey is an advocate from the Supreme Court, Lalita Kumaramangalam, member of the BJP, Sanjay Hegde, senior advocate, Ashutosh, senior journalist and a political analyst, and Devjani Bhattacharya is a political analyst. Views lean towards the BJP. Let's start with the first round, that is called the big fight. We begin with you, Sushmita Dev, where we ask you this question, that is this an existential fight for the opposition ahead of 2024?
You see, there's no question of an existential fight for the Trinamool Congress, because the Trinamool Congress is in power in Bengal, as you know. Mamata Banerjee's won this election for the third time. And there are more and more people like Babul Supriyo and Arjun Singh who are giving up the party which is in power in the center and joining the Trinamool Congress. But what is happening is that the Bharatiya Janata Party, despite the fact that they take pride and their PR exercise is so huge about their development agenda and the agenda of helping the poor, they still feel the need to target the opposition. They still feel the need to use central agencies to corner the opposition. Therefore, it is crystal clear that the BJP, somewhere deep down inside, is fearful of their own position. Otherwise, they would leave it to elections and fight it out. There was no need to misuse the central agencies the way they are.
Okay. Shama Mohammed, your opening comments.
See, there is you asked about the existential crisis or whatever you're saying. Of course not. We are the only party which is fighting day in and day out against this government. Now, how many of our governments have they toppled? I mean, have you seen Maharashtra, you have seen Madhya Pradesh, you have seen Goa. So all these governments, Karnataka, have been toppled undemocratically. See, democracy, as like Rahul Gandhi said today morning, democracy is dead in this country. We see dictatorship. Today, when we are protesting peacefully, in a democracy, peaceful protests are allowed. Our constitution allows that. Why Section 144 just outside our Karyalaya, just outside the AICC headquarters? Why not our MPs and our Karyakartas, various people from the party and leaders were not allowed to protest peacefully. That itself sees that the government right now is insecure. It is not us who are afraid. It is Narendra Modi who's afraid of Rahul Gandhi. It is Narendra Modi who's afraid of the Congress party. My leader and our party, we do press conferences, we take questions from everybody, but Narendra Modi does not take any questions from anyone. He just does Mann Ki Baat and tells what to do. The way ED has been used, just one second, the way ED has been used only against opposition and none who have joined their own party.
Sure, 1 minute opening comment time is over. I'm going to come back to you, Shama Mohammed. Justice B.A. Khan, your opening comment, sir.
Sanket, I have no opening comment. I have nothing to do with the politics of the issue. I am a judicial person. If you have anything legal to ask me, I am to answer. The rest of it, I find myself as an odd man out.
Why don't you tell us something about the Enforcement Directorate and the argument?
You ask me.
Okay, I'm going to do that. I'll do that. Yeah. I get your point. You don't want to be drawn into this political debate.
No, not in this political.
Absolutely.
So I find Sanjay there, but he's a legal man of all citizens.
Yeah.
But I can't do that. I have been a judge, so.
No issues. I will ask you certain questions because there is a lot that we need to know, particularly on the Enforcement Directorate. So I'll ask you these questions and I'll come back to you, sir. Thank you very much and appreciate your position. Lalita Kumaramangalam, your opening comments. Ms. Kumaramangalam, if you could unmute yourself.
Yeah, apologies for that. Good evening to everybody. The suggestion that Mr. Narendra Modi is afraid of losing power to the Congress, whoever whoever name was mentioned or not, is, I think everybody knows that that's just a political statement. But aside from that, the fact is that the ED's job is to make sure that the leads that they find are backed up by solid evidence. It has taken a while to have that evidence collected and collated in such a way that it is presentable in the court. And today, the Supreme Court, in their own wisdom, has given the ED, or rather has reiterated the fact that the ED has the power to take some very strong steps against people whom they have proof. Now, the black flag protests, etc., every party has the right to protest against whatever they feel they are protesting. And every opposition party, of course, has the right to do that. Whether it was for leadership change or whether it was actually because they claim the price rise or whether it is for some other reason, is for the Congress to clarify.
Sure, ma'am, I'm going to come back to you. Your 1 minute time is over. I'll come back to you.
But they tried to play the victim card today.
Sure.
Which I think is because they, as you pointed out, they probably feel they're grabbing more eyeballs when they make these protests than they've been able to do in Parliament so far.
Sure. Ashwini Dubey, opening comments.
Thank you, Sanket ji. Sanket ji, the new trend, the new fashion has started that demoralize the investigating agencies, demoralize the judicial system of the country if the judgment is not in the favor. So demoralizing investigating agencies or the government bodies is not the way to criticize the government and its functions. See, Sanket ji, Supreme Court in Nikesh Tarachand Shah declared that the ED has the powers conferred under the law to investigate people, conduct searches and raids, and even arrest citizens under the stringent provisions of the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. And by this judgment, the Supreme Court not only strengthened the power of ED, but also introspected the law's credibility, which has been reaffirmed by the Supreme Court recently, which on the other hand, the credibility of the opposition is at stake. That government is keeping its hand, its functions of these agencies by this judgment. The law is taking its course, as the law of the land is always above one prerogative with the selective people. Even Supreme Court by this judgment saying that influence of government is not involved, also even immunity to governments, and the judges upheld the competence of the parliament.
Sure. Sanjay Hegde.
Well, just one clarification. Both Justice Khan and I are wearing black, but we are not protesting. Okay.
Sure.
Then I agree with Justice Khan that we men of law do not normally get into politics. I am not into electoral politics. Let me put it straight. I know which party I will never vote for, but I don't know which party I will vote for. Having said that, you see, we are at a crucial stage in our democracy. what is happening is that there is an overpowering government at the center, and one political party wants to dominate everything. Democracy works when there are two or more parties, when there is an equal fight, when people are given a choice. Today, if you take away the choice of every other choice except the ruling party, then you possibly will end up with a North Korea or Iraq kind of situation. That is not healthy for democracy. And going like Lord Dalhousie's doctrine of lapse, going state after state, destroying the opposition there, that also is not healthy. It is against the federal structure. We are a patchwork of various subnationalities in a subcontinent.
Okay.
We cannot be tarred with one color only.
Sure. Okay. And certainly not the color black, which you are wearing. Thank you very much, Mr. Sanjay Hegde. Ashutosh, your opening comments, and then Ms. Debjani.
I think, Sanket, I think we are living in a kind of a democracy which should not be called a democracy in the classical sense. The fact today is that the few officers have been given a right to arrest me without telling me why I should be arrested. They can attach my property without telling me why my property should be attached. Can you imagine? I'm questioning these officers. Are they aware of the Indian jurisprudence? Have they read the Indian Constitution? And what about the judiciary? I think the Supreme Court in this country has been known to protect the democratic and civil rights. If they can't protect the civil and democratic rights, then the question should be asked: why the Supreme Court is there in the country? They are supposed to be the upholder of the Constitution. They are supposed to be the guardian of the Constitution. They are supposed to take sides with the citizen, not with the state. But we have reached a situation where our democracy can be only called a controlled democracy, or semblance of democracy is there. So if somebody is saying that democracy is on the deathbed, I can't disagree. I can't disagree on that point. But the fact today is that today, I think we all have to come and realize that if democracy is not safe today, then when?
Okay. Debjani Bhattacharya, your opening comment.
I think that there's no reason why it should be an existential threat for the opposition. However, the way the opposition is behaving, they are making it look like an existential threat for them. Otherwise, the ED is investigating. That is also under democracy only. That is also part of our democracy. ED, CBI, all these are parts of our democracy. They're acting as per our democratic format. And then why don't we cooperate with them? Why don't we make it a show? Why do we make a show out of it? And then we make it, the opposition is making it looking like an existential threat, as if going to their office and interrogating them and asking them certain questions, that itself is not as per the format. But that's not the case. These are all parts of our democracy, and the opposition should behave in a more matured way. That's what I think.
Okay. Justice Khan, now I want to come to you and ask you, so we are going to divide the rest of the discussion in 2 or 3 parts. ED and the use of agencies, a political fight, for instance, black color garments being compared to, as a sign of protest against the Ram temple, and also the larger debate on the existential battle. While the point number 2 and 3 are political in nature, but Justice Khan, now let's ask you what your understanding is about the powers of the Enforcement Directorate. You see, what is being said right now is that the entire concept of criminal jurisprudence in this country is that you're innocent till proven guilty. But now what has happened is, with these special powers with the Enforcement Directorate, you are guilty till proven innocent. And certain conventions internationally are cited for coming to this arrangement. While the Supreme Court may have upheld the powers of the ED, how do we ensure that these powers which the ED now should have must not be misused? For instance, if there is a case of corruption, then should Prevention of Corruption Act be applied or Money Laundering Act be applied, just to get the stringent actions of the ED in?
Sanket, I want to make two clarifications. A distinction has to be made between testing the constitutional validity of a statute or law and the misuse of that law. These are two separate areas. A law may on the face of it look very draconian and stringent, and yet constitutionally it may pass the test of validity. Here is a situation where we are getting confused that since allegedly the law is being misused, that it must necessarily be constitutionally valid. That's not the case. Number two, it's the prerogative of the Constitutional Court, the Supreme Court, to test the validity and to interpret the Constitution and to safeguard it. It's nobody else's baby. And that court applies certain rules of interpretation as are applicable to any other game. Now, after applying those rules of interpretation, if the court concludes, I'll come to the apprehensions a bit later. If the court concludes that a particular provision of law is constitutionally valid, it's the end of the matter. Now, in implementation, how that law is implemented is a different ballgame altogether. Successive governments are resorting to their own ways of implementation, which may result in abuse, which may result in absence, which may result in whatever. That's altogether a different matter. Third element in this is something which is to be borne in mind is this interpretation is done by the judge. And who is the judge? The judge comes, he's a person from our society. He's a man of clay as much as you and me are. He has his own predilections, he has his own philosophy, he has his own outlooks, he has his own background, he has his own dislikes, likes, and all those reflect on his judicial functioning. That's why you find some judges very conservative, some judges very liberal, some judges very convicting, some judges pro-labor, some judges pro-government, and these days people say all are pro-government. But what can you do about that? He's a human being, he's not a robot. Now, if a judge renders a judgment which goes in favor of the government, there is an allegation that he's pro-government. But if that same judge or the other judge, the other bench, he gives a decision in favor of the citizen, then he becomes a liberal judge. Now, where do you draw a line? Now, there is a misinformed debate going on the judicial functioning in this country, and I have been repeatedly trying to clarify that please get to know the nuances of the judicial functioning before you comment on the judgments and the verdicts and sit as appellate courts in the television studios. That's one part of it. Now comes the Supreme Court judgment. If you ask me on that a little after just now, I can reply on that.
Sure. I'm going to come back to you and then we can talk a little more about this. Shama Mohammed, let's first ask you this question about the BJP's allegation on why Congress chose the color black for its protest on Friday. They say that this is out of disrespect for the 5th of August 2020. When the foundation stone of the Ram Mandir was laid. So you are anti-Ram, anti-Ayodhya, and you are indulging in appeasement. How do you respond?
I respond by saying that this diversionary tactics will not work. Mr. Amit Shah wants to divert from the real issue, that is mehengai, that is berozgari. And we are going to fight against these things, against what they are doing to this country, where there is an incredible back-breaking price rise, as we all know, and also unemployment, and also this 5% GST. So he cannot divert attention from it. And I want to go back to Mrs. Kumara Mangalam. She said ED goes to people when there is certain evidence against them. I want to ask Mrs. Kumara Mangalam, there was evidence against Mr. Narayan Rane, which Kirit Somaya, your own MP, the Bharatiya Janata Party former MP, has given. Then why is ED now not questioning Narayan Rane? Recently, Himanta Biswa Sarma, an FIR is filed by our own Jharkhand MLA, saying that the suspended Jharkhand MLA, Congress MLA, Mr. Ansari, called him up, said that Himanta Biswa Sarma is going to give them 10 crore rupees to move to Bharatiya Janata Party. Why is the ED not investigating that? So if it is based on evidence, ED should. Pratap Sarnaik, a Shiv Sena MLA who is now with Eknath Shinde, again, Mr. Kirit Somaiya was after him. Why is the ED not questioning now? ED was questioning him before. ED has stopped questioning now because he is with the Eknath Shinde faction and they have formed the government right now in Maharashtra. So what we are saying is that we want ED or any CBI, anybody to question whoever is corrupt or whatever. But it should be equally done with whoever is corrupt. It cannot be that you just go after opposition parties.
Okay. Lalita
you should go after,
would you like to respond?
This is right now only against opposition leaders.
Lalita Kumaramangalam's response, please.
Yeah. First of all, I think we should all remember that the BJP has now been in power for 8 years. So had we really wanted to go behind only opposition leaders, it would have been done a long time ago. As I just said in my opening statement, the ED has to take the time to check whatever may be facts or the doubts they have about people whom they have received complaints against, etc. There is no proof that the ED is not looking at allegations that have been made against the people whom Shama Mohammed named, which is Narayan Rane, Himantu Biswa Sharma, etc. These allegations have been made recently, but I don't work for the ED or with the ED, so I'm not. This is not a definitive answer on the part of either the BJP or the ED. The ED has its own rules, procedures to follow, which they do. I'm sure they are not stupid enough to come up with any sort of accusations without substantial evidence to back their claims. And insofar as the SC is concerned, let's remember that the person
but your
who
own
filed
MP
the
said,
case...
Kirit Somaiya.
Ma'am, can I please finish? Please let me finish. Have the courtesy to let me finish. Please remember that it was the Congress MP, Karti Chidambaram, who filed the case that the SC has given the judgment for. Now, as the Honorable Justice pointed out, when the SC gives judgments that are pro-BJP, then of course they are anti-Congress when they give, and this is true. I admit this even as a politician. That if they are, I know you didn't say BJP or Congress, sir, but you said that when it goes against one party, they claim they are against that party, which is actually quite true if you look at it. If you want to be brutally honest, that's what the politicizing of SC judgments is happening. But that's besides the point. Also, let me say that the ED is not just conducting raids on politicians. For example, today I think the gentleman who runs the crypto exchange, one of those gentlemen, has also been raided on suspicion of money laundering. Now, let's understand that the Supreme Court has given a judgment and given an enormous amount of reasoning behind it. It's not as if I have never questioned some of the Supreme Court's judgments. Of course, I have. But the thing is
Lalita Kumaramangalam, if I may, Lalita Kumaramangalam, you see, no comments on the Supreme Court judgment, but I think the comment that is being made over here is
not answering the questions which we have asked.
These strong powers that the Enforcement Directorate has.
Yes.
Will the government or is the government not likely to misuse those powers against its political opponents? That's the question.
Look, if this depends on one's perception. If the Congress and other parties feel that we are going to misuse this, then that's what they're going to say. But as I have said, the ED is, I don't think the ED is run by people stupid enough.
But there is proof,
One minute.
Ashutosh and Sanjay Hegde both want to come in. Ashutosh will begin with you.
There is evidence that they are misusing it.
I'm not bold enough to do that. Of course, the Congress will say
let's get in more guests now.
Then they'll have to play the victim part.
Ashutosh wants to reply.
One last point, Sanjay, just one last point. Everybody is going on and on about the lack of democracy in this country. The fact is that I'm the only one who's Ashutosh, just let me finish, please. Just give me a minute, Ashutosh. Just a minute. I'm sorry, just a minute. The fact is that, except for me on this panel, everybody else is openly criticizing the government, and that's quite right. It's a democracy. Why shouldn't people question the government? But you're able to do it on open television in India. That is a democracy. If this was Hitler's autocracy or whatever it is that people are claiming that, as part of their Black Friday protest, that wouldn't be happening in India. Now, I am not saying that we don't need an opposition. Even the Prime Minister in Parliament has said that we do, and we do need a strong opposition.
Okay,
but you can't blame the BJP constantly saying
by the way,
opposition is not
Ms.
able to
Lalita
get
Kumaramangalam, you are
together.
not the only one defending the government.
Yes.
There are others also in this panel, and we'll
Okay.
open this up for others to speak so that we can know. Ashutosh, your comment.
Sanket, if the argument is made that the judiciary in this country, Supreme Court in this country, judges in this country are above the Constitution, I do not agree with that. If judiciary commits a mistake, it has to be criticized. Even if the judiciary don't make a mistake, I have every right to criticize judiciary and to criticize severely. So to paint judiciary as a holy cow, I think that's a part, that's a reflection that this country is moving to authoritarianism. Secondly, I think if somebody is saying because you are conducting a debate on this, and your channel is known to be, if not anti-government, at least differs with the government, I want to say this, that a semblance of democracy has to be made in this country so that you can globally say, and inside the country, that democracy is still alive. There is a democracy in Russia also. There is a democracy in Turkey also. Can you call it a democracy in the perfect sense? Today, if I write something on the Twitter, I can be hounded, I can be in jail, and I will not get a bail anywhere. Today, a person like Zubair can be hounded like anything. 7 cases, but Nupur Sharma, there is no case against her. Nobody will, no court will go, no police officer will go after her, despite having the serious and the violent consequences. So where is the democracy? The fact is today that there are 2 kinds of democracy in the country. One democracy for the ruling elites, for the ruling regime, and another for the opposition. If you are with the ruling regime, then democracy is a different meaning. If you are in the opposition, the democracy is different meaning.
Sanjay Hegde wanted to come in. Mr. Hegde.
No, I was also struck by the fact that Shama Mohammed was wearing orange. So these days, since we are on colors,
is that all that you wanted to say?
Everything goes on. But let me illustrate that further.
Yeah.
Just because somebody wears black does not mean he or she is automatically against the country or its gods. Just because somebody wears orange doesn't automatically absolve them or make them holy. And to quote the great words of Mr. K. Parasran, who argued the Ram Mandir matter, Ravana's sin was not only that he kidnapped Sita, but that he kidnapped Sita wearing saffron clothes. So we have in this country a long tradition of people wearing saffron also doing nefarious things. So let's not go by colors. Today, on the 75th anniversary of our independence, are we free men and free women in an independent country? There was a gentleman called Nathan Sharansky who had a test that if in the public square you cannot speak against the government of the day without fear of arrest, without fear of violence, and without fear of your life, then you are not truly living in a free country.
Okay. Okay. Sushmita Deb, I want to come to you, and before I ask you questions on the Enforcement Directorate and the larger point on opposition unity, I would really want to know from you what you make of this color coding politics which has happened. That on black, the BJP by the evening saying that this is being done as an opposition to the foundation stone laying in Ayodhya, and thus this means appeasement.
See, what Mr. Amit Shah should be worrying about, that he holds the second highest position in the country, straight after the Prime Minister. And this is a government who was screaming out loud saying Mehengai ki maar in 2014. They don't have a damn answer for it inside the parliament and outside the parliament. It's extremely unfortunate that a senior leader like Amit Shah should make such a frivolous statement, because clearly he has no answers, and the speech of Nirmala Sitharamanji in Parliament exposed her badly, where she says inflation is 9% in US and 7% in India, and yet the rupee keeps falling against the US dollar. This is a government, and their foolish arguments have been exposed in the Parliament today. So what Mr. Amit Shah is basically doing is diverting, like Shama Mohammed says, and I don't blame him, because what became clear in the Parliament that they don't have any plausible explanation for what's happening to the economy and what's happening with price rise. So I think Amit Shahji's statement was a very lightweight, casual and unnecessary and unbecoming of someone who holds such a high position. He should have had something more concrete to say than what color which party is wearing. I mean, I'm deeply disappointed.
Okay, I'm going to come back to you and maybe ask you some questions of the ED also. But Devjani, what do you make of this assessment of the opposition? This comparison with the fact that the Congress wanted to oppose the foundation stone of the Ram temple and thus appeasement. Am I to understand that this is back to basics for the BJP? That whenever in trouble, remember Lord Ram?
And no, Sanket, what I would say like this, that in the parliament we have seen that all the questions raised by the opposition, the way they were going actually forwarding falsehood on GST rates and Mahangai, the finance minister has very rightly given every answer. I mean, the answers to every question, point by point and question by question. And yeah, of course, there is Mahangai and there is inflation. We have gone through a pandemic. We are still going through. The whole world is in bad shape. The West is afraid of recession, and we are going through a bad phase, no doubt, but in spite of that, we have kept our basics very strong and we are still handling the economy in a very strong way. The rupee is falling against US dollar, but it is not falling against the other major currencies if we see. So that's the point. Keeping that at the background, when today is 5th August, a very pious day for us. I mean, Article 370 abrogation and Ram Mandir inauguration today. We know what the day is very special for India, for Bharat. And today when Congress decided to, demonstrate on protest, today's day they should have been a bit more careful not to wear black. Because it is they who have given the Home Minister Amit Shah the talking point. They could have still demonstrated. They could have protested.
Okay,
no
Shama
doubt about
Mohammed.
that.
Shama Mohammad's quick reply. Shama Mohammed, you could have chosen a better day.
The talking point have been given.
So the Home Minister says that any other day you were wearing normal clothes. Only on the 5th of August you decided to go black.
No, we have put the protest long time back. We have said we are going to protest on this. Are we supposed to just choose? We will do when there are issues. You always come out and say Congress party is not on the streets. Where is the Congress party? So when we decide to do it, because there is an important issue here, they're not letting us talk in Parliament about it. Mrs. Sitharaman is ridiculing the poor. She says there is no Mahangai. So of course we have to protest, and we have protested today. It's nothing to do with any temple or today or any of Ram Mandir. I think this is a protest. This is for the people of India against Mahangai and against unemployment, against the 5% GST. Now, the other thing she said is, there is COVID right now. The whole world is going through this. Let me ask her what happened in 2008. There was an economic recession all over the world, but we in India did not feel it because we had a Prime Minister called Manmohan Singh. And at that time, Sanket, the price of oil was $130 a barrel. And we were selling it in India at 50 rupees. That is how a government should take care of its citizens. That's what they're not doing. And the other thing on what Mrs. Kumara Mangalam said about ED, she said there is no evidence and all those things. In a reply in Rajya Sabha asking about ED rates, it has said after 2014, it has increased 27 times. And they asked how many, from 2000, for the last 10 years, there are 5,000 cases. And from 2014 onwards, 3,200 rates, out of which there were only 23 convictions. I mean, that is clear harassment. Now, if you're going to do these rates, there should be equal number of convictions also, or even less than that, but 23, that is what, 0.5%. So that is the other thing, very important. It is not I who said that. That is the Parliament's reply in Rajya Sabha saying it has increased by 27 times after 2014.
Okay,
So
now let me
definitely
introduce the next.
and the ED,
Let me
and
now
let's
introduce
understand,
the next.
ED also comes under the finance ministry.
Okay, one moment,
Not-
Sushmita
not
Dev.
an
Now let's
independent- it
begin
comes under the finance ministry, the ED.
the next part of this conversation, Sushmita Dev, and I would like to begin with you, is that if we were to believe that what you are saying or the Congress is saying, what Ashutosh is saying is correct, then how do you fight this? Do you fight this collectively? Do you fight this as one cohesive force in the opposition, or do you have a different strategy? And in that context, I come back to the main topic of discussion today. Is the opposition fighting an existential battle where in the presidential elections also we saw that you tried coming together, but then there were compulsions that took you apart. And I remember you advising the Congress in the past also that wherever you are weak, let go, let someone else come up. Do you think you need to sort this out before 2024?
See, they are two totally separate questions. You give me one example inside the parliament when it has been about an issue that's impacting the nation negatively, that the opposition have not raised their voice. You see, when there's an issue that ails the nation and the government is responsible for it, any responsible opposition party will fight back. Because that's what is the mood of the people in their constituencies. When you're talking about the presidential election and the vice presidential election, that's a separate issue. When you're talking about who's electorally strong in one state and who's not in the other, that's another issue. So, I mean, let me put it in perspective. It is very simple. Today, I can say that Congress and CPM, by contesting in every seat in Bengal, was not helping Mamata Banerjee fight her toughest battle with BJP. But that has nothing to do with when the opposition raises their voice together on issues that if they impact the people negatively. They're three separate issues.
Okay.
It's as simple as that.
Ashutosh, how would you respond? Do you feel that now is finally the time, and we have had this discussion in the past also? Yes, Mr. Hegde, I'll come back to you. Ashutosh, do you feel that a cohesive fight needs to be put ahead of 2024, or is that a utopian situation to imagine a Mahagathbandhan in the opposition which will fight the BJP?
Sanket opposition unity and the cohesion is a big joke in this country. Because I can understand the Mamata Banerjee, and if she was so concerned about the democracy in danger in this country, then she should not have said that since the Congress and others did not consult them, so she is not going to support Margaret Alva. Imagine even a situation like this, even in a situation like this, for her, the ego is much important than the national interest. She could have said,
I have an
Congress
answer
and opposition, Congress and opposition,
I'll come back.
You committed a mistake. You did not consult us. I don't like it, but for the national interest, I will support the candidate. Today, indirectly, she's supporting the Modi government. She's supporting Jagdish Dhankar, who had made Mamata Banerjee's life a hell. But unfortunately in this country, the egos of the opposition leaders are so high that they forget the national interest. They are willing to support Modi government indirectly. So how can you assume that there will be national?
Now that's an allegation, Sushmita Dev, that has been put on.
I'm not saying
Mamata
allegation.
Banerjee was in Delhi on Friday. She met the Prime Minister, and there are allegations that this is some sort of a secret deal that the TMC has with the BJP. Perhaps to make sure that the ED goes easy.
You see, I understand that Ashutosh is getting extremely worried about this situation and leveling many allegations. I would like to say, at the cost of repeating myself, that in the 2021 Assembly election, Mamata Banerjee fought a very tough election. The entire country watched it, where Modi Sarkar was saying 200 par. And Congress and CPM fought against her on every seat. Yet, this was in the month of May. She won the election, and let me remind Ashutosh ji, he sounds very upset about it, but it is Mamata Banerjee who came to Delhi and met Mrs. Gandhi and all other opposition's leaders. And I think I take great umbrage the fact that you call Mamata Banerjee as an ego. If she had an ego, she wouldn't have come and met Sonia Gandhi, Mr. Yechuri and Samajwadi and had a meeting in Delhi in the month of August. And then taken the initiative in the president's election. Secondly, this whole theory about Mamata Banerjee helping Dhankar, it is very simple. Even if she did vote with the opposition parties, I don't think it would have made any difference to the results of her abstaining or us abstaining from this vice president election doesn't mean that we're giving Dhankar a victory because of things.
Okay.
And last but not the least, I need just 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Is that what is more worrying to me? What is more worrying to me is there's so much of hoo-ha about Mamata Banerjee abstaining. What people like Ashutosh, who are neutral and well-known analysts, should worry more about Congress MLAs in states like Assam and Rajasthan who are directly voting for the BJP candidate, and allies like JMM and Uddhav Thackeray who are directly voting for Murmu and have a government with the Congress.
Okay,
No
Shama
one
Mohammed.
wants to talk about
Shama
that.
Mohammed, just quickly coming back to you.
This is not for Shama. This is for Mr. Ashutosh.
Yeah, Mr. Ashutosh. I'll come to Mr.
That when you do criticize,
Mr. Ashutosh will
please
also
look
answer.
at the larger picture and get out of this habit of targeting Mamata Banerjee.
Okay,
because
one
it's
moment.
so
Ashutosh, your
convenient.
right to reply will
It is
come,
so
but first Shama
convenient.
Mohammed. Shama Mohammed, you see, in many previous broadcasts, I remember Ms. Sushmita Dev saying that if the Congress has seen on the basis of track record that you are not strong electorally on certain seats, get out of that place. Give it to, or have an alliance with someone more deserving. Fight cohesively. Don't try to be the big brother in the opposition. Do you feel that the opposition space ahead of 2024 needs to get rid of the ego if you are to fight what you claim is the ego of the central government?
No, I don't agree on that point that we are acting like a big brother. We have fought with RJD in Bihar. In DMK, in Tamil Nadu, we are with the DMK. So where is the big brother over there? There is no big brother there. So I don't know from where this comes from. We are with the JMM in Jharkhand. So it's not that we are trying our best to form alliances to defeat the Bharatiya Janata Party wherever they are. We are fighting. I mean, the only leader who has steadfastly or steadily from the last 8 years or so, who's been talking against the BJP and the RSS, their ideology, is Rahul Gandhi. From day one, he has not budged from where he is. He keeps attacking the RSS, he keeps attacking the BJP, he keeps attacking them on their policies every day, day in and day out. So how can you say that we are not forming alliances? We have formed, in Maharashtra, we were with the Shiv Sena. I mean, we have done everything possible so that the Bharatiya Janata Party does not come to power. But the problem here is, they are destroying democratically elected governments. That is the problem.
My point is, what is the opposition doing about it, either collectively or individually?
What is happening in Madhya Pradesh?
Is street protest one way of
I mean, you saw the letter which has been signed by... No, in case of this recent ED and all those things, all the opposition parties have come together and signed a letter where about the recent Supreme Court judgment. As you can see, even a normal police, according to the IPC, if they start an investigation, they have to file an FIR. But here, it's not important. A charge sheet is not important immediately. I mean, you can summon, the ED can summon anybody, anytime they want. There's got so much of power now, the Enforcement Directorate.
Okay.
They've upheld it.
Hegde,
and we do feel that the Supreme Court should look into it. It's important.
And a couple of other guests then. Sanjay Hegde, you wanted to come in.
Yes, I wanted to come in just in my capacity as somebody who's watched politics for a very long time. Historically, against a dominant ruling party, the opposition winning has happened only because of somebody who has stood outside power. Whether it was Jayaprakash Narayan in 1977, or whether you had Harkishan Singh Surjit, who piloted 2 or 3 governments, both the VP Singh government and later on Deve Gowda Gujarat. It's happened when there has been one honest broker. who has no personal stake in the government. I think more than an opposition face for 2024, what you first need is one honest person whom everybody else trusts.
So you feel, oh, that's very interesting. Actually, a whole new subject matter of discourse. Who is going to be the leader of the opposition? You know, in a contest, in a political contest. Who will that most acceptable face going to be? Ashutosh, your right to reply.
I think I can understand the Sushmita. There's problem. The problem is I have been a great admirer of Mamta Banerjee. There is no doubt about it. I have written about it also, and I don't hide. I don't mince my words. But the fact is, there is an opportunistic trait in her. Mamta Banerjee had been with Bharatiya Janata Party with RSS ideology. She was a minister in Atal Bihari Vajpayee's government. Today, she is defending and fighting BJP for the simple reason because BJP is trying to upstage her in Bengal. If BJP had been a weak in Bengal, CPM, the Congress has been strong enough, Mamta Banerjee would not have fought BJP.
But you know, ideology aside, isn't that how politics is done, Ashutosh?
No. Second point. I think Sushmita is also forgetting that in Goa, the kind of words she used against the Congress party, and this has spoiled the entire opposition unity efforts. So today, Mamta Banerjee, she knows, and everybody understands that is if Abhishek Banerjee is targeted by Enforcement Directorate, she has to make truce with the central government. Otherwise, like Partha Banerjee, tomorrow Abhishek can also land up in jail. It's that simple.
Okay, you know, Sushmita, before you reply, two of our guests have been waiting. Ashwini Dubey, just quickly coming back to the point of the ED. You see, we've been speaking to a lot of experts. Without commenting on what the Supreme Court has done, do you feel that the powers of the Enforcement Directorate, which now even the Supreme Court has stamped, have a potential to be misused against political opponents? And how does one stop this? As Shama was talking just a short while ago, the rate of conviction is low. The number of political people who are in the ED radar, very high.
I have 2 points to answer.
Would there be a situation where somebody will be charged of corruption but booked under the stringent acts of the PMLA, not the Prevention of Corruption Act?
Sanket ji, Directorate of Enforcement is a specialized body tasked with implementing only the crucial financial laws, which is Prevention of Money Laundering and Foreign Exchange Management Act. That's a investigation. Allow me to complete, sir. I know you allow me to complete this. So the powers which have been derived or which has been given under the PMLA and under the Foreign Exchange Management Act, that if property is derived or obtained as a result of criminal activity, the value of the property, which is called the proceeds of the crime, and also if the property has been taken or held abroad, any other property equivalent in value, which is also the proceeds of the crime. Now, coming to the other aspect, you have just raised the numbers, the statistics. During 2014 to 2022, the Enforcement Directorate took up 22,330 cases. Remember, 2000 to 22, and conducted 996 searches only, while show cause notices were sent in 5329. But that does not mean that the charge sheet was filed against them. They were booked and they were faced the trial. During this period, penalty of 6,376 crore was imposed on the accused, and properties worth rupees 7,060 crore was seized. Now, moving further, if we see what the Supreme Court has just mandated, Supreme Court has not said that the special courts does not have power to oversee the evidences which has been gathered by the top premier agency of this country. Supreme Court has only held the constitutional powers of ED to make arrests,
no, that's the
carry
point.
out
No.
search.
While the ED has these powers, but how are they being applied? And that too against the opposition parties. I'm really low on time, but Sushmita Dev's right to reply on what Ashutosh is saying.
Yes,
see, very briefly, it hurts me when neutral analysts like Ashutosh work on the basis of suppositions and conjectures. When Mamata Banerjee met the governor of Bengal in Darjeeling, they said, oh, Mamata Banerjee's cut a deal. And then Partha Chatterjee goes to jail and is raided, and all, rest is history. Okay, now it is, please understand, Mamata Banerjee is under no pressure. She's taken Babul Supriyo away, a sitting MP of the BJP. She's taken Arjun Singh away, a sitting MP of the BJP. And if she feared the BJP and the ED, and if she was so worried about Abhishek Banerjee, she wouldn't be going around decimating BJP the way she has been doing in Bengal. Number two, I would like to say that there is nothing wrong with the Chief Minister making a courtesy visit to a Prime Minister and to the President of India. There's nothing wrong with it. And the more you read into it, Ashutosh, you are promoting the narrative of the BJP against a challenger and a leader like Mamata.
Okay, I've run out of time.
Please stop.
I
Please stop.
completely run out of time.
And least of all, you shouldn't be doing
This will not end.
I have great regards
This
for
will
you.
not end.
You are one person at
This
a
will
time.
not
one
end.
point here. That's it.
But you have given
One
one
point,
point.
I
want
The
Sushmita
BJP's
Sen to
narrative.
reply.
One point.
I
You
want
are supporting
Sangeeta, one line.
BJP's narrative, Ashutosh.
I want
And
Sushmita
don't do
Sen.
it. You
Sushmita,
are
one point.
analyzing properly.
I
You
want
analyze
Sushmita to
things,
reply.
analyze it
Has
properly.
RSS changed
Sanket.
its ideology? Has
I
RSS
don't
changed
expect
its
you to
ideology?
beat-
Just give me
I don't
the
expect you to
Okay,
take the
stepping in
BJP
now,
side.
a hard stop on this
I'm
debate.
very
Thank you
sad
very
that
much
you
for
are-
joining
you are
us, all of
Sanket,
you
a
all.
one-liner.
Well,
Narrative.
completely run out of time. Thank you very much. No amount of time is ever enough in a political debate, but we've come to the end of the big fight. Is this an existential battle for the opposition or not? What do you think? Please do write into us. Short break, be right back. Let's quickly take some comments on the coup app also. Nikita writes, the supremacy the Congress once enjoyed in the opposition space has now been ceded to smaller parties. Nishir says, tough times ahead for the grand old party. As we said, what do you think about this issue? Is this an existential battle for them? Do write into us. Good night and goodbye.